Hello, Neural Network listeners. I'm your podcast co-host, Vasudevan Lakshmanan, or Vasu for short, and I have two quick things to say before we get into part 2 of our interview with Dr. Heffernan. Firstly, a big shout out to Dr. Heffernan for not only making this episode, but the previous episode possible as well. Without his knowledge inside the field, not only would Armand and I not have learned as much as we did throughout both of these interviews, but we also wouldn't have had the opportunity to share it with you. So we thank him for helping our podcast, which was only started 4 months ago, have an opportunity to have such a big episode learning so much for us and for our listeners as well. The second thing is a thank you to you, our listeners. Not only are Armand and I trying to elevate the quality of our episodes, but we're also hoping to make the episodes more fine-tuned towards our audience. So we would love that if you had any suggestions at all, that if you could care to write those inside the question and answer segment within Spotify. It would greatly make our jobs easier to help provide interesting and intricate episodes for you. Now, without further ado, I present to you part 2 of the interview with Dr. Heffernan.
And we did like a little bit of background research on you, and we found you've been mentioning a lot about assessments. So I guess could you give us more of like an overview of like what it is and like its features and how it works?
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. ASSISTments at base is just a dumb platform by which actually teachers, we're going to maybe 1,000 teachers across the United States that assign their homework through my platform called ASSISTments. Kids get feedback as they go, as they solve problems, and immediate feedback, super important. And then teachers get data on actually how children did. That's like the key thing. We're probably really well known. Like in 2016, actually, I got invited to the White House to watch actually Jeremy Rochelle actually at the time at SRI actually report on the 4-year-long study that was done in the state of Maine that actually showed that teachers using assessments that were put into a randomized control trial and they agreed to random assignment. This was like a clinical quality drug trial. They improved, they changed their practices. Actually, they went over fewer problems and they went over the hard problems that everyone's messed up last night instead of going over all of them. They reliably actually improved student learning actually on a standardized measure. And we started to see achievement gaps actually go smaller. At that time, it was actually lower knowledge children that were below the median. They actually grew quite a bit more. And so after that study was happening, I was challenged by a guy named John Barron, who actually was working at a foundation saying, well, that sounds cool, Neil. Can you do it again? And can you demonstrate in a different state that actually these learning effects actually will exist a whole year later? Fast forward 4 years, actually, that just came out. Actually, so that was done in the state of North Carolina instead of actually in Maine. And so those two studies are what really set us apart. There's very few ed tech products that actually bother getting or that are willing to expose themselves to proper randomized controlled trials. Unfortunately, in this country, actually, you can sell to schools anything you want. Actually, I can't go make a drug and sell it to anyone. The Food and Drug Administration would not allow that. But in this country, we couldn't care less about actually the quality of educational artifacts. If you can hire a salesman and take money from a school, that's totally fine and legal. And yet we actually have one of the few proven products that actually has been shown to work. And it's been shown to work because like making sure you get feedback is my grandmother probably could have told me actually the result.
Can you provide like an example of some kind of feedback that assessments would give?
Well, the feedback is almost all handcrafted and written by teachers. I mean, we pay teachers to write an explanation. So if you actually are asking, you're sitting there stuck, you make a try, you get told no, make a try again. Actually, you might actually get an explanation, or you might get a set of hints, and We run all these experiments on, hey, are hints better than explanations? What types of hints are better for which types of kids? Under the hood, we actually have a reinforcement learning service that is trying to actually figure out which types of kids should we give which types of feedback to. But that is all in the small noise, right? Give feedback is like the overwhelming actually thing, and that often does not happen in America. Most kids will have to go do their homework tonight and will not get feedback if they're lucky till tomorrow, and they will have already practiced the wrong things 10 times or ever how many times that teacher assigned some problems. And so um, but yeah, so we do not actually have computers generating that feedback. Now, with that said, we are running a randomized controlled trial comparing actually our teacher created feedback. I think we have like 250 examples of teacher created feedback. And we finally, since GPT got good enough, we actually had GPT actually create 250 examples. And so we have a head-to-head actually competition right now comparing GPT created feedback versus teacher created feedback. I don't know what the result will be. I know that we have actually put into our system when you're being possibly exposed to this GPT created stuff that you get to actually say you can report if you see there's an error. I think we say something like you should never trust any AI. Actually, they will make errors, and so even though our error rate is small, it is definitely not zero. And but you know what's funny? Actually, the only instances I know of actually kids reporting stuff right now are where they're reporting errors that my teachers made when they made explanations. So it's not like actually our teachers were perfect either, right? They wrote something, and it turns out when some kids start complaining and say, I want to report something because I think this AI made an error, we're looking and saying, oh, nope, actually, that's Miss Jones. And yeah, you're right. Actually, she didn't say that perfectly right. It's almost never that the teacher got the answer wrong, but it's like, how did you actually go about saying that? But so I don't know. I'll be very happy if we actually just tie teachers. I'm not expecting GPT to beat teachers. And the other problem we actually have is, and I don't know if we've done it well enough, but actually GPT will talk and talk and talk. Like actually, so the explanations or the hint messages are longer than what teachers do actually, and getting actually GPT to be parsimonious is hard. And so I don't know if we put enough work into that. Like you should be asking, so of those 250 explanations, like what's the average character count on both of them actually? And because clearly if it's really long, kids are not going to read it.
Actually, we had like a question for later, but everything is pretty relevant to ask now. But do you think that like AI and like large language models could ever like potentially replace teachers entirely? Or do you think there'd always have to be like kind of a balance?
So I certainly hope they don't. Actually, like I actually think
Yeah.
I think actually like we know there's these intelligent tutoring systems or these computer-based things, but it's all about actually help motivating children to actually bother doing it, right? And so my my advisors created this system called it's a company called Carnegie Learning. I think the software is now called Mathia. And it's one of our competitors. They charge a lot of money. We charge nothing, actually. And but the thing that we do that is rather uniquely different is we try to actually let the teacher stay in control, and they actually make their assignments each day. And because I don't really because I want to actually help these teachers look at their own instruction and realize, wow, did no one really get problem two right last night? Like that's a teachable moment for that teacher to realize, what did I do wrong? My advisor system, this called Mathia thing, you go into a Mathia classroom in December and half the kids are on a chapter on content before actually, they're in chapter 2, some are in chapter 23. The teacher might have just been lecturing or doing classwork around chapter 11, and the odds that any one kid is on chapter 11 is approximately 0, because they just all get spread out. And so I don't believe in that sort of world. Like, I believe that if the teacher can actually be like can actually stay in charge, and some kids will actually have to do some few extra problems. I didn't mention we have this system called Redo now that we've built in. So as kids, if a teacher assigns these problems, there's some extra problems that will just magically happen if they get the first one wrong. But our goal is to get most of the kids to be in a good place. So tomorrow morning, actually, she can start out and realize, okay, fine, there's 2 kids that really didn't get it, but otherwise we're ready to go and we can learn a new thing. But it could be, though, that actually schools will do what actually universities do. Like, some of these universities will throw 3,000 kids into a class. WPI doesn't do that, but I have friends at Berkeley that actually, well, there will be 3,000 kids in the computer science class. I certainly hope that's not how our schools use our technology to just I have reason to believe that that's not going to happen. I think actually people think, well, we still need babysitting. Like, actually, we send our children to school actually to be nurtured by adults to actually, and it's not college, right? Actually, college, maybe college, it makes sense to actually throw 3,000 kids in a class. It's still, that's probably not the ideal way of going about stuff. But anyway, so I don't think actually that's the future. That's not what I hope for.
Absolutely. Especially regarding the teaching aspect, me and my friends at Mass Academy have been working on a project. It's designed to help refugees who are part of the RAPS organization. So it's an organization centered around helping refugees learn the English language. So what we're working on is kind of looking at how CS and AI can be implemented within that specific field. So I found it pretty interesting that you're doing similar research with math and kind of like diversifying the scope. I was wondering what inspired you to do that particular form of research with AI and education's integration.
I guess I've been studying, I started a tutoring program at my high school. I've somehow, for some crazy reason, I've been focused on and knowing and tutoring to a large degree is actually also hand-holding, and you could call it babysitting if you want. Knowing there's a human, I could probably get there have been these actually human tutoring experiments where they actually make sure the human tutor doesn't tell them anything, okay, but they just have a human tutor sitting there with them, right? Actually, they've done Mickey Chi has done these cool experiments, and the only thing the human tutor does is, oh, here, read the next sentence in the book. Hey, what can you tell me about that? Can you just please self-explain that? And it turns out, and the kids maybe don't even know that actually there's kind of a gimmick here in that little study, which is the human tutor is not going to tell you any content, but human tutors actually, I think, are powerful, and having caring humans is really kind of important. And so I'm trying to figure out how to build this sort of technology that we help teachers stay in charge and support classrooms, as opposed to my advisors, who actually built a system that actually kind of got rid of the tutor. The teacher. Actually, in fact, my dissertation actually is entitled Intelligent Tutoring Systems Have Forgotten the Role of the Human Tutor, actually, because they were all focused on how do we actually get the kid to solve this problem, and how do we model the problem? When in fact, I think the key thing is modeling, or just thinking about how do we get humans involved. So I've since high school and then into college, I was studying human tutoring, and then I went into teach actually myself, and it seems like I've been doing the same thing forever, which is how to make slightly smarter educational technology. I don't think we're
Uh,
done.
yeah. I think I have like one more question. So what kind of insights does assessments provide?
The so one of the key things assessments provides, okay, is actually is uh um and here I could pull up I could pull out the video, but I'll just like I have it by heart. Like Miss Kelly, like I have Miss Kelly on video. Okay, the first 26 seconds of class is Miss Kelly actually pulling up and saying, "Look, number two, only 80, only 27% of you got this problem right." She writes the problem on the board again. Okay, and in fact, 75% of you said 3x plus 5. Can someone please tell me what actually, why'd you all say 3x plus 5? And now 26 seconds into class, they are all talking about something that's kind of like they all experienced. Everyone was forced to eventually get told the right answer here. But she kind of knows this is this is a good moment to actually talk about actually something. And compared to what I used to do as a math teacher, where, like I had no idea which problems were hard last night, actually, and I'd ask you, hey, what problems do you need to get shown? And then I'd actually, okay, now who can actually show number two? Actually, because Armin actually needs problem. Oh, okay, you can do number two. Great. Here's your space on the board, actually, and now it's sad that Armin didn't get any feedback until actually like this morning when he finally realizes he's got the wrong answer. But that's like what a crazy way of actually running an educational system, and that is still insanely prevalent. Like teachers do not. There's way too many people that don't appreciate the role of actually feedback and how crucial it is to move it fast. I've run randomized control trials where we have actually manipulated whether you actually get feedback right away, like at the end of the end of the assignment. At the end, getting feedback at the end of the assignment is statistically tied with getting feedback 2 days later. Okay, like there's a huge difference between immediate feedback. Canvas quizzes give you feedback at the end of the assignment. I don't know. Well, I guess actually when you get over here, you'll wind up having to use Canvas, and if your professors are using Canvas quizzes, you don't get, and that's what you're doing for homework. It's sad that you don't get feedback as you go. Actually,
Yeah, for sure. I know like feedback, especially I think like in math, for this term and the last term, I've been taking calculus. So I think like feedback in that sense would be like really helpful. Because like sometimes like on the homeworks, I'm kind of stuck. I have like no idea where to go. So yeah, like the role of feedback is really crucial.
yeah, and
And
so you don't, and so you're not using a platform. Your teacher's not using a platform that gives you feedback.
yeah, no, we use like Canvas and we use WebWorks, but I think some of the feedback there is like a little more ambiguous than what I'd expect from it. Because I think like sometimes it gives like some insight about like what was wrong about my answer, but like it doesn't exactly tell me where I should go about with trying to go closer to the right solution. So
All right. Well, I like web work is kind of like assessments. Like I don't want to pretend like we're all that different. Actually, I'm mainly contrasting at the moment. My children actually in the Shrewsbury Public Schools actually almost never got feedback on their homework. In fact, actually, remember actually I have a parent teacher conference where I'm like, it seems like my son is handing in PDFs. By the way, everyone in the school has iPads, okay, and they're not getting immediate feedback. They're making they're scribbling on PDFs actually their work, and then I go in for parent teacher conference. I'm like, so my son says he never has gotten feedback, and she's like, no, people can get feedback if you finish your work early, you can go out into the hall and check your work against the answer key. And I'm like, I didn't say it maybe this baldly, but you're telling me your solution is for all the slow kids, that ones that need the feedback the most, you don't get feedback at all. the high flying kids that actually finish the classwork, they can go check their homework last night. Like that was your plan. So anyways, don't get me started on feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think our time is getting a little close, but I guess we had one more thing. Is there like anything else you want to leave off our listeners with?
Well, like I love the fact that actually that we can get all sorts of people involved in this research. So in my lab, I have actually had probably 200 actually undergraduates actually involved. I've had probably a dozen high school students, actually several who have had their names on papers. When I actually mentioned the paper that actually compared GPT 4.0 versus GPT 3.5, that was first authored by a high school student. And so if you're even playing around and know what Hugging Face is, then actually you should come get involved in our lab, and we'll get you to actually participate in the science we do, and the building of assessments, because we are always trying to do both of those. And I think those really go together. And if you do them together, we actually can add to science and also at the same time make a better product that we actually give away for free. So my students and were very happy during the pandemic because they kind of knew, and we now have 23 employees, but they actually were enjoying coming to work every day because they knew, holy cow, there's so many people that need us. So it's good to be working in a space that matters.
Thank you so much for the interview.
Hey, you guys are very welcome. Come see me actually in person sometime.
Yeah, no, I'd love to like learn more about your research. I think LLMs are fascinating, and the work you guys are doing with assessments is really, really cool.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. So you guys, anyway, I recognize the time is up. I can tell someone's bugging you. So come see me, and thanks for asking me for my opinions.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much as well.
Okay, talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah,
have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you, Neural Network listeners, for listening to part 2 of our interview with Dr. Heffernan. We hope that you were able to take away something interesting and cool about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the development of both of these fields in the future. Stay tuned until our next episode, and that's Vasu, Orman, and Dr. Heffernan out.